want to talk about mental health or equating mental health to wealth because your mental health is just as important as your physical health, your emotional health. So, just making sure we discuss that taking care of that is important. And I just want to just talk about my journey with my mental health and what I went through in the past 6 or 7 months and um, how I kind of found my way back. So I'm not really sure when it started per se or when I um, kind of fell off track with my mental health, but I will say that I knew when I needed to seek some help. Um, so in 2014, or just to backtrack, in 2014 is when I had my first child. I have a 4-year-old son, and like right after I had him, I started experiencing postpartum depression, and it's not really something that the doctors really like dive deep into. You get like questionnaires. Hey, are you really sad today? Or have you been sadder than usual? Check yes or no, or maybe. Have you thought about self harm? Check yes or no, or maybe. Or have you thought about or the question would be like, have you cried more than usual lately? Have you been really sad over things that are out of your control? Check yes or no. Like it's literally a questionnaire. It's nothing past that. So instead of actually answering the questions honestly, I would just check no on all the boxes because I didn't want anyone to A, think something was wrong with me, which there was, or B, maybe try to take my child or something if they figured out that something was going on with me. Um, but there was, I was always worried about something happening to my child, or some women are, I don't know how people feel about admitting this, but I was worried about that I would do something to my child or do something to myself because I was so overwhelmed. And I do mean like actual harm. Now, I did not do anything to my child, but that doesn't mean the thoughts weren't there and that I didn't hurriedly, just hurry up and push them aside. But that postpartum depression existed and I just was overwhelmed, but I never said anything, and it lasted for months. Um, Eventually, it just went away, but it was there. Never said anything. And then I had my second child, my daughter, in 2018, which was last year. I had a small bout with postpartum depression. Like I always kept thinking something was going to happen to my kids, or someone was like out to bring my kids harm or something, and it would just be like I mean, nothing was going on. Like we could just be sitting at home watching TV, and like I would just go into like full blown scenario of something happening to my kids, and that wasn't the case. Um, but I just begin to feel overwhelmed, and I know that's not necessarily a word that people use to describe issues with your mental health, uh, because people probably say, "Oh, well, okay, I'm overwhelmed all the time," but or I'm overwhelmed all the time, but that was just the beginning. I felt incompetent almost, like. How could I manage two children? I've only ever dealt with one, and that's pretty much the fear of all parents. Like, you start out with one, how are you supposed to manage two? And it was going to be just me for a while because my husband did have to go to work. Like, somebody had to make money, someone had to be there to provide for our family, because we have to live. We have to have lights, food, basic necessities. So there was that, but um, I just felt like I was going to explode. And I try to describe it to other people as like a hard boiled egg. If you've ever boiled eggs before, or if you've seen the process of boiled eggs, um, you know, if you boil eggs too long, eventually the eggs will crack open. You can see the splits throughout the egg, and some of the white within the egg will begin to come out of the shell. And that's how I felt. I One day I was at work, and in the middle of the day, I just felt like I could burst into tears at any moment. I wasn't doing anything in particular. I no longer had a um, high stress job, like a phone job, so I no longer was like on the phones 24/7. But I felt that I could just cry. And I wanted to go to the restroom and have a total and complete meltdown in the middle of the workday. And it was like 10:30. Um, but I felt like I just couldn't do that, because if I did, who was going to put me back together? Um, or how was I going to put myself back together? If I did that in the middle of the workday, would I be able to pick myself back up and go back to work like nothing happened? Like I've done this before. Not like, in the sense where it's just been an utter meltdown, but I've cried a few tears at work and just went back to work like, I can make it. But this time, I mean, like I was on the edge of just destruction. So I felt like that egg where, and I've overboiled so many eggs where the cracks were gonna show, and I wasn't sure that if one crack, you know, or I guess I should say if I let a crack slip through the armor or the facade that I put on all the time, I would be able to like glue it back together and hold it in. And that wasn't necessarily the moment where I knew I needed to seek a therapist or outside help. Um, a God honest to truth, just open moment when I knew I needed help was when I had thoughts of just walking away from everything. Um, and that included my marriage, I mean, my spouse, my small kids. I have a daughter that's almost one. She'll be one at the end of this month. And I have a 4-year old. And I just wanted to get into my car, and this includes my job, and just drive away and just keep driving. No destination, no money, no clothes, nothing. Just silence and drive until the car ran out of gas, and then probably just walk until I couldn't walk anymore. Um, and that was the moment that I knew I probably should seek help, because if I felt that way, then what was going to stop me from doing that? And I am, let me put this in plain terms for anyone who thinks anything differently of me, for saying that or being honest about my actual feelings of my mental state in that moment. And this was last year in like November. Um, I am a Christian and I believe in God. I have a relationship with God. So um, that that aspect of me still exists, and I do still have that relationship with God. I cannot say that I was as close to God in that moment, but God was still there with me. But I also believe that God put people here to help us when we need it. So, um, but we'll put a pin in that. I'll come back to that topic in a moment. So, to go back to what I was saying, yeah, I knew I needed to seek outside help because I was losing it. I dreaded going to work every day. Like it was a drag. I was having, I had so much anxiety. Like my shoulders were up to here every day, like touching my ears, right? And I have like super broad shoulders. But anyway, my shoulders are like touching my ears every day. And I just felt just panicked. The anxiety that I felt was like on 10. I felt like my fists were clenched all day. I wanted to scream all the time. And it was bad. And I just felt like a trash mom too, and a trash wife. And it wasn't necessarily anything I was doing. I was still going through the motions of being a mom and being a wife, but how I felt on the inside didn't change. Well, I guess I should say the things I was doing on the outside, the motions still happened, but I still felt empty and like blackened on the inside, like just a disappointment. Like I just had a lot of emotions going on, and there was some anger in there too. So at the time, the job that I did have, it was a desk job. They offered 3 free sessions for counseling. It didn't matter if it was marriage counseling, financial counseling, grief, individual counseling, whatever it was for. You can get 3 free sessions through the company. It was an insurance company, so um, I used it. And one day after work, um, I almost broke down in like just tears in the middle of an empty cafeteria as some people walked by, just like straggler people after work. And I called, and they asked questions like, is it like life threatening? Are you threatening to hurt yourself or others? And I was like, no. But they connected me with a therapist. I think a few days later, and my first meeting, you know, I was just, it was so tense. I was tense, and I was just, the anxiety was just like, I had anxiety about time, and I just felt frustrated. Like I felt like if I wasn't somewhere on time, it was just, I wanted to scream. I was upset. It was a lot to take in. Um, so, the first session, I didn't feel any different, but I continued to go. And it, it really like, it helped a lot. I promise by that third or fourth session, my shoulders were no longer here, but like here. And my therapist is a female, and she really helped me get to the root of why I felt so much anxiety, um, why there was so much anger, because there was some anger in there, um, why I felt overwhelmed. And a lot of the things that I was going through had nothing to do with the initial problem that I thought it was. So um, I'm just, I'm glad that I went to get the help that I needed, because the stigma within the Black community that therapy is for crazy people or that we don't need it is ridiculous. I think that Black people have conditioned themselves to um, just take in so much pain and to just deal with it. And I can understand why initially we did that. Coming from slavery throughout the years, that was all we had. We had to. We had no choice. I get that. But now, when we are offered options and those things are made available to us, I don't see reasons why we shouldn't uh, use those resources. Therapy is not bad. Um, it's really honestly changed my life. And every time there's something that's just like eating me up, I see my therapist. I pray and I talk to God, but I see my therapist too. Like, there is nothing wrong with going to church, praying to God, but seeing your therapist for whatever issue you have as well. Um, what gets me with Black people as well, or the stigma with therapy, is that people make it seem like you can't love God, go to church, talk to your pastor, and seek therapy for whatever issues you have. Because just because you go to church and your pastor is available doesn't mean your pastor is versed in therapy, or doesn't mean they have a degree in therapy. They could be, they could, but most of them don't. And that is okay. That's just not their job. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to have that separation. And I think a lot of Black people feel like that you can't do that, and God is the only one who can. Excuse me. Which, yes, pray to God, ask God for guidance, ask God for help. You can also ask God to send you to the right therapist. God put these people here for a reason. So here's how I see it, or how I look at it. If you sliced your leg open, you would not run to your pastor and say, "Hey, pastor, oh my God, I cut my leg open. Please stitch and sew me up." Because your pastor is not a doctor. He's going to look at your leg and say, "Well, I'm pretty sure you should see a doctor for your leg." Why don't we treat our mental the same? You know, if there's something going on up here, see someone who's been trained to diagnose and discuss with you what's going on in the mental capacity. And I hate that there's a stigma surrounding anything that's going on in your mental as well. Just because, I see a therapist doesn't mean that I am crazy. Or if I have a mental issue or a mental disorder, stop trying to label people as crazy. Let them get the help that they need. Um, if there is some kind of imbalance or they have to take medication, that is fine. At least they are making the effort to be seen and to have it taken care of. Unlike most people, especially Black people, who just try to sweep it under the rug or act like it doesn't exist, or just brush the family member off as crazy instead of trying to get treated. Um, I really truly believe that your mental health is wealth. I mean, yes, pray, ask for guidance, seek help through whatever God you believe in, um, you know, but also utilize the people that God put here to help you. You know, the same principle applies. Go to the doctor when you're sick. God gave them the knowledge to help you and heal you. Go to the doctor when you're sick. God gave them the knowledge to help you, to treat you for whatever illness that you have. Just like when you go to the dentist for your teeth, you go to the optometrist for your eyes, you go to the podiatrist for your feet. Some people go to the chiropractor for aches and pains in their back. I mean, that's just what we do when we have these issues within our body and ailments. So treat your mind the same way. Not all the time is it just, should it just be brushed off, or should you just ignore it? Or sometimes the church is just not the answer for everything. Um, and by no means am I dogging the church. So please don't take it that way. I do believe in there's power in the tongue, and I believe in the word of God, and I believe in prayer. But I also believe that God gave these people the knowledge to help you. So utilize it. Um, that's what God put them here for. And if God also gives us a spirit of discernment. So if you feel like your therapist is not here for you, or they're not doing what's in your best interest, find another one, or choose someone who's going to help you get to where you want to be with your mental stability. So yeah, I try to encourage everyone to see a therapist at least once in your lifetime, if you can. And I think it should be something that there shouldn't be a stigma attached to it. I also think it should be something that's affordable. So I am trying to start a fund for men and women, but especially women seeking therapy. Um, I really want to have funds available for women in need who need that kind of counseling, or that kind of backing to get your mental under control. Because a lot of times, you know, things just go untreated or unnoticed, and simply by talking to someone who's unbiased, who knows nothing about you, unopinionated, um, it could be helpful. Because a lot of times I could go to my therapist with a one-sided issue, because all I can see is my side. Um, and she's like the mediator. She gives me ideas. And she also helps me see other points of view that I may not have seen before, and then gives me advice on ways I can look at it and ways I can handle the situation, compared to if I speak with friends or family, which I appreciate all of their opinions, and I appreciate them listening to me. But sometimes them listening, it's not feedback. And then other times they may give me feedback that is just literally one sided, and is usually my side. They're agreeing with me. And my therapist does not do that. So it's just, it's very helpful to have that backing, or to have someone, to hear you out, or to just work through those deep seated issues, man, because a lot of the times the things that we think are the root cause of what we go through, or why we feel the way we feel, they aren't. A lot of the times it's stuff from your childhood, or trauma that you didn't realize you had, or things you packed away that you thought you worked out. And, um, you know, it's usually that's usually the case. So I'm really trying to start a fund for uh, people who need therapy, mainly women. I'm thinking about opening the fund up to men, but mainly it'll probably be for women for right now. And it'll probably be called It's Only Mental. But if it sounds like, a good idea, uh, let me know what you think in the comments, or email me about it, but I'm kind of thinking it's a go. Gonna do it as like a nonprofit and or ah, can't say. I don't know. I'm gonna work out the details, but I really want to have that available for people who are seeking help, and because I think it's important. Not everybody has access to insurance, or not everybody has funds for it either. So I'll figure out all of the details for that. Also, I want to put on an event discussing mental health and just talking about the stigma behind it, and mainly for women. But I'll, anyone can come, but I kind of want to have vendors there, food available, so people can have, purchase a table. You can sell your items, whatever your items are, whether you're selling, homemade goods or whatever it may be. But I want to put on an event, and I want to try to get a therapist or two to come out and discuss mental health. So it'll be like a mental health awareness type of event. That'll also be called It's Only Mental. But I'm still trying to work on the details of that. And if there's enough interest in it, then it's something I'll do. If not, it might just be something on a smaller scale, because it's just an important topic to me right now. And, I'm starting to see more buzz about mental health in the Black community, but not as much as, locally, because, we can talk about it on a grand scale within social media, but, if it's just not done locally, then that's all you're ever going to see. So it is something that I'm really, really looking forward to putting on. Just trying to work out all the little kinks, and get all the funding up. So if you're interested, maybe you comment, like, or just email me. By the way, my email is thislittlepinch@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at this may pinch a little bit. And then, of course, if you're watching this, you're probably checking this out on YouTube at this may pinch a little bit. But yeah, that was my little spiel on mental health. So just to close this out, protect your mental. I mean, it's important. Get your mental in order. It's just as important as your body, as your emotional, as your emotional health. Just make sure you're keeping it not up to date, but just I guess I want to say get the help if you need help, because it's important that we take care of ourselves. It's important that we keep that basically our mental game strong. Like, you want to make sure that you're all there, especially if you have children, or you're taking care of children, or you're married, or you're caring for a loved one. You can't pour from a cup that's empty. You want to have something to give to other people, and taking care of your mental is definitely a part of that. And honestly, finding the therapist that I did find is one of the better things that's happened to me so far since the end of 2018. Again, hit me up on Instagram, YouTube, or email me if you have any questions. And again, thank you for kicking it with me once again. And I will talk to you